there, everyone. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy. Thank you very much for lending me your time and your ear and listening into another video from me. This one I kind of didn't want to do, but I kind of feel like I really should do just to give my perspective on it, and that is to talk about NX expectations and rumors. Now, I'll be hopping back and forth between the two. I'll do an expectation, then a rumor, and until I'm done, okay? The first major expectation that I've seen a lot of people talk about is backwards compatibility. Now, granted, I don't know if it will happen or not. I'd assume that at some point, some way, there would be ways to play Wii U games on the NX. I'm not necessarily assuming, though, that that's going to be an out-the-box feature. Especially if what a lot of people want to have happen, which is for Nintendo to go with a different type of architecture to get away from the Power PC architecture type, then that wouldn't be able to be done right away, unfortunately, which is a problem. There's a lot of different things that could be a problem for that, but I'll get into that in a little bit. First rumor I'm going to talk about: ports of Wii U games. Now, from what I've heard from the rumor, I think there's only like 4 of them. I think Smash is included as one of those games that would be a Wii U port to the NX. As much as I want to say this would be a good thing, I'd also be a bit of a hypocrite because I've not necessarily condemned Sony for it, but I've put Sony through the ringer for it for the PS4, and I don't think Nintendo fans should just be jumping up and down championing this if this becomes a trend. It wouldn't be the best thing, which would mean to me that they would be putting out the console earlier than they actually want to, and they're not necessarily ready for it to be out on the market, and they're only doing it to appease people who are impatient. I could care less for them to do that. I'd rather that they actually take their time and make new games for the console, rather than them having to worry about porting a bunch of remasters from their last gen hardware to the next generation. Another expectation, guaranteed third-party support. There is no way whatsoever that Nintendo is going to get complete and utter support from all major third parties. They can get a lot of it from Eastern third parties with special deals and such, but to expect it from most Western major third parties is probably not a good idea. You just gotta think of the fact that there have been some bridges burned in the past that Nintendo can't mend even if they try. It's just not going to happen. And even if it does happen, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that every game is going to end up on the NX. Whatever it is. And people need to actually be realistic in their expectation about that. Okay. Next rumor. There will be a Metroid game at launch. And I'll get further. There's more to it, but I'll get to that further along. Okay. For this platform to have a Metroid game at launch, they would have had to have started it just about 2 years ago. That would be granted if it was to launch this year. It would have had to have been started just about 2 years ago. And if I remember correctly, from last summer, Kensuke Tanabe had pretty much confirmed that there was no Metroid game in the works at the time. And he said that if we started work on a Metroid game, it would likely have to be on the next platform. So, how is this rumor just popping up out of nowhere? Say, oh, there's going to be a Metroid game on the NX and it's launching this year. Sounds kind of far-fetched to me when one of the major producers for the series just last summer said that was not going to happen and that it would take a long time because of the fact that the game would have to be filled with content. Think about that, people. You gotta think about that. Okay, next expectation. Controller without gimmicks, or a standard controller out in the box without gimmicks. Okay. Now this kind of shoots down the expectation of backwards compatibility, because if people want backwards compatibility, especially with the Wii U, then they're going to have a controller with a quote-unquote gimmick that they do not like, and that would be a controller with a touchscreen in the middle of it. Because without that, there would be no way to have that backwards compatibility right out the box. There'd be no way to have it. And even if they didn't have it right out the box, just say they made that controller, but they made it a separate purchase, there are going to be people who are going to complain that they can't play their games without that device, and then they'll be mad that backwards compatibility is behind a paywall. I personally wouldn't be, because if that's the situation, that's the situation. Like, you ask for a standard controller, you get a standard controller, don't bitch about it. But if you need another device to do some other stuff with the console, you can't bitch about it, because you asked for it to be that way. At least that's how I look at it. Like, you asked for it to be that way and they did it, you only got yourself to blame. And there's the next rumor. Well, this is a dual rumor. The hardware is weaker than or more powerful than the PS4. I remember when I first heard that rumor, and people said that people were going on rants. Oh, the NX is going to be weaker than the PS4. Blah, 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 blah. And then they heard the rumor was going to be more powerful. They just started jumping through the roof. Like, how do you believe all these rumors right off the bat? Do you people filter this stuff out? Do you think about this at all? Like, seriously, think about it. Logically speaking, the technology is cheaper now, and it wouldn't cost as much to produce. So it would only be logical that the whatever the NX is, if it is a home platform, it would be more capable of a device than the PS4 would be as far as the hardware goes. That's logical, because this stuff is cheaper to get now. It's easier to mass produce because it's cheaper. Come on, people, use your brains. The next expectation is 4K gaming. I'll give a shout out to Liger and Duo for this, because he explained this very thoroughly himself on his channel. 4K gaming would be super expensive, and companies are having a hard time now getting 1080p to happen on the current generation platforms. And the reason is, and I know this sounds like a dirty word to a lot of people, they're not optimizing. If they optimize, they could actually make it happen consistently. But they don't optimize for each individual platform. They utilize x86 as a crutch to just be able to just slide one game from one platform to the next. And the fact that they don't have to actually put in extra work, the games don't run that well. But then to expect them to jump up to 4K, like, how many companies are going out of business right now just trying to meet the 1080p level? The 1080p level. You want these people to jump to 4K? That's insane. They would literally, the prices of these games would skyrocket, and that's something that people don't want to have happen. And if it doesn't happen, then you're going to be paying out the ass for a buttload of DLC. Day one DLC, on disc DLC, DLC to get to the next chapter of a game that shouldn't be that way. And I'm not talking about Telltale Games, because that's a different story. You're paying $5 a chapter. Like, that's not a big deal to me. But if it's something just like, let's say there's a God of War 4. Just say God of War 4 happens. You beat the first chapter and finish off the first boss, and you've paid $60 for this game. And now you have to drop another $10 to get to the next chapter. No. Hell no. Hell no, I wouldn't want to pay that. Now, I could understand 1440p being the next step, and I think I said that in the stuff I wanted for the Wii, the NX. 1440p would be a nice step up. It would look better than 1080, but it wouldn't necessarily kill Nintendo's pockets or anybody else's. They could add in 4K and 8K textures, which would make the scenery pop when they're looked at through a 4K television, but they would not take the development cost hit as bad. Like, see, you gotta think about this stuff. Like, it would cost way more to do it that way, and I don't think people really want to think about that. Like, we have so many studios closed down, so many game studios that I grew up with closed down because they just couldn't keep up with the cost to develop games. So the studios shut down, and that sucks. Okay, the next rumor is that it will be launching in 2016, this year. Now, I'm of the thought process that it'll be launching next year, simply because, as far as I remember, Nintendo has never really announced a console and then dropped it that same year. They usually give themselves like a year to a year and a half time before they launch it. So that's just me going based off history. I can't say yay or nay as to whether or not it's actually going to happen. I'm just not expecting it, and I'm not hinging my gaming experiences on that. I'm not worried about it. Plus, they've actually got other stuff coming out for the Wii U. So, I mean, hey, they've got stuff coming out into 2017 for the Wii U. A lot of it we just haven't heard about. And I'm expecting to hear about that stuff as well as some of the NX stuff this E3. The next expectation is that everyone is expecting this thing to be popular. How can you expect it to be popular? How? Especially with the situation that befell the Wii U leading up to its launch. Everybody was talking highly about it. They were praising it, saying how great it would be. And then immediately after that, everybody fell off and treated it like it was the stepchild of some other man that they didn't want in their house. So you're expecting it to be popular because that's the only thing that you can expect if you want it to sell. You expect it to be popular. It would have to be popular. Now, I'm not saying that it won't be, but it would have to be for what everybody else wants. Like, people want this to be Nintendo's revival, quote unquote, in the home market space. But what they're failing to realize is that they may not ever recover that popularity. And that's okay, to be honest. If they don't, that means that they have to work harder for your money. So why would you necessarily want them to be the most popular? I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Because, I mean, I've noticed that Sony hasn't really put out a whole lot of stuff. And they are the most popular. And, yeah, doesn't necessarily bode well. It's just what I'm saying. Okay. The last thing I'm going to cover is the rumor for x86 architecture. This is kind of a rumor and an expectation. Because people are expecting it because, it'll make it easier on developers and all that. Like, you know what? I say to that. Back during the Genesis era and the Super Nintendo era, hell, every era up to last gen, they've had to work with different sets of hardware. And you know what developers working with different sets of hardware leads to? They have to reprogram their games, which means that they have to go back in and look at the code to make sure that it works well on the platform that they're putting it on. And if they have to look at it, they might notice some mistakes that they have made in coding and optimization for the game, and they can fix it on one platform, and that might actually lead to a fix on another platform because they have to actually go back in and look it all over instead of what we're getting right now where they're just putting the game out and then everybody's having the same problems apparently. Like, see, that's where I get a little irritated. Because if they're having the same problems across the board, that means that they're not actually going back in and checking it properly. That means they're literally not going back in and checking it properly. And I, as a person, I don't want that. Plus, honestly, if Nintendo stepped up to the Power 8, which is the next line in the Power PC line, they could definitely outperform the Xbox One and the PS4, and they wouldn't even need to spend much on the processor. Granted, I don't know which direction they're going to go, but I'm just saying that they wouldn't necessarily have to spend a whole lot more money, and it would automatically enable them to have backwards compatibility, which people are expecting out of the box for some reason. Though, again, there's no guarantee of that. So, I mean, there's just a lot to think about with it. And it's just like people aren't taking their time to kind of just sit down and think about all this stuff. Like placing these expectations on what you want, and then you hear the rumors and you get excited and believe the rumors, but the rumors don't even necessarily match your expectations. That's a little weird to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking. Maybe I'm a little too critical. I don't know, but it just seems to me like this is not the best way to be thinking. Like we're the consumers, we're the customers, but we're letting the industry tell us what it is that it should be. I'm phrasing that wrong. As the consumers, we should want the industry to thrive. And for it to thrive, there have to be differences among the competitors. If all of the competitors are exactly the same, then what is the point? It makes things stagnate. It makes it get boring. But that seems like that's exactly what people want. I personally don't have a problem with either one having to go out and get multiple platforms to be able to enjoy all of the different series that I like, or just being able to deal without, but the industry thrive. It doesn't bother me. But it seems like a whole lot more people are hung up on this. Okay, I understand wanting to be able to get a lot of major games on one platform and not be left out. I get that. I understand that. I truly do. But I think people need to take time to take a step back and think about what they're expecting and think about what they are hearing. Because it seems like every time there's a new rumor, like this thing isn't even this this device has changed so many times throughout these rumors. I don't want to believe any of them. Even the ones that sound good to me, like the Metroid one. 'Cause I would love that, but I can't see it happening. Realistically speaking, especially with the information we've been given before, I can't see it happening. Well, I think I've stayed my welcome a little bit too long, so thank you guys very much for listening. Keep your eyes and ears out for more of my stuff, and until the next time, please enjoy your games. Peace out.